It is week 15 of the NFL season, and here are my predictions for this week. But first, how did I do in week 14? In week 14, I was 6-9 in my predictions. Starting off the week on Thursday Night Football, we have the 5-8 Chargers versus the 5-8 Raiders. For the Chargers, Justin Herbert fractured his right index finger and is out for the rest of the season. And the Raiders are coming off of a 3-0 loss to the Vikings, which is the lowest scoring game in the past 16 years in the NFL. But with Justin Herbert out, the Chargers are starting Easton Stick, and I think the Raiders are going to win. And this week starts the Saturday games in the NFL. We have the 7-6 Vikings versus the 7-6 Bengals. The Vikings are coming off of a 3-0 win over the Raiders. In that game, Josh Dobbs completed 10 of 23 passes for 63 yards before he was benched in the fourth quarter for Nick Mullins, which he was 9 of 13 for 83 yards. And also, Justin Jefferson returned this game, but got injured again with a chest injury. But the Vikings won this game with a field goal right after the 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter. And the Bengals are coming off of a 34-14 win over the Colts, and have now won 2 games in a row after Joe Burrow's season-ending wrist injury. Jake Browning completed 18 of 24 passes for 275 yards and had 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. And Joe Mixon had 21 carries for 79 yards and a touchdown. And I have the Bengals winning. Next, the 7-6 Steelers versus the 7-6 Colts. Last week, the Steelers lost 21-18 on Thursday Night Football to the New England Patriots. In that game, Mitch Trubisky had 190 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception, and he also led them in rushing yards with 30 yards and 1 touchdown. And this week, Kenny Pickett is still out with his sprained ankle, and TJ Watt is questionable with a concussion. And last week for the Colts, they lost 34-14 to the Bengals. Gardner Minshew had 240 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception, and Michael Pittman Jr. had 8 receptions for 95 yards. And I have the Colts winning. Next, the 7-6 Broncos versus the 9-4 Lions. The Broncos are coming off of a 24-7 win over the Chargers. In that game, Russell Wilson had 224 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And Cortland Sutton had 3 receptions for 62 yards and a touchdown. And now he has 10 receiving touchdowns on the season. And their defense was also great with 6 sacks and 1 interception. And the Lions are coming off of a tough loss, 28-13 to the Bears. Jared Goff completed 20 of 35 passes for 161 yards with 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. But their running game was pretty good, with Jahmyr Gibbs having 66 yards and a touchdown, and David Montgomery with 66 yards. But I think the Lions are going to bounce back this week and win. Now moving over to Sunday, the 5-8 Bears versus the 8-5 Browns. The Bears are coming off of a great win, 28-13 over the Lions. In that game, Justin Fields had 223 yards and 1 touchdown, and had 12 carries for 58 yards and a rushing touchdown. And their defense was great, having 4 sacks and 2 interceptions. And the Browns are coming off of a 31-27 win over the Jaguars. Joe Flacco had 311 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception, and has been named the starting quarterback for the rest of the season. And David Njoku had 6 receptions for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I have the Browns winning this week. Next, the 5-8 Jets versus the 9-4 Dolphins. The Jets are coming off of a huge blowout win, 30-6 over the Texans. And Zach Wilson played great, having 301 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Garrett Wilson had 9 receptions for 108 yards. And the Dolphins are coming off of a very upsetting loss, 28-27 to the Titans. And the Dolphins were up by 14 with under 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter and still ended up losing. But in the game, Raheem Mostert had 96 yards and 2 touchdowns and now has 16 rushing touchdowns on the season. And I have the Jets winning. Next, the 7-6 Texans versus the 5-8 Titans. Last week, the Texans couldn't get their offense going at all against the Jets defense. CJ Stroud had his worst career game, completing 10 of 23 passes for 91 yards. But Devin Singletary had a good game, having 65 yards and a touchdown. And for the Titans, they were down 27-13 with under 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter against the Dolphins. They scored a touchdown with 2 minutes and 40 seconds left and got the 2-point conversion. Then Derrick Henry had a 3-yard rushing touchdown with 1:49 left and ended up winning 28-27 over the Dolphins. And I have the Titans winning. Next, the 6-7 Buccaneers versus the 6-7 Packers. Last week, the Buccaneers won 29-25 over the Falcons and are now first place in the NFC South because they own the tiebreaker over the Saints and the Falcons. In this game, Baker Mayfield had 144 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Rachaad White had 102 yards rushing. And the Packers' 3-game winning streak came to an end by losing 24-22 to the Giants. Jordan Love completed 25 of 39 passes for 218 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. And I have the Buccaneers winning. Next, the 5-8 Giants versus the 6-7 Saints. The Giants are coming off of a massive win, 24-22 over the Packers, and they won by a walk-off field goal and have won 3 games in a row. And they are now currently just 1 game out of a playoff spot in the NFC. Saquon Barkley had 20 carries for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. And their quarterback, Tommy DeVito, also had 71 yards rushing. And the team combined for a total of 209 rushing yards this game. And the Saints won 28-6 over the Panthers. But I have the Giants staying hot and winning. Next, the 6-7 Falcons versus the 1-12 Panthers. The Falcons are coming off of a 29-25 loss to the Buccaneers, but Desmond Ridder had a really good game with 347 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception, and Drake London had 10 receptions for 172 yards. And for the Panthers, Bryce Young had a horrible game, completing 13 of 36 passes for 137 yards. And the Falcons are going to win. Next, the 8-5 Chiefs versus the 3-10 Patriots. The Chiefs are coming off of a 20-17 loss to the Bills and have now lost 3 out of their last 4 games. In that game, Patrick Mahomes had 271 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception, and Travis Kelce had 6 receptions for 83 yards. But a lot of Chiefs players were mad at the end of this game because Kadarius Toney scored a touchdown on a Travis Kelce lateral, but the play was called back because he lined up offsides. And the Patriots got their 3rd win of the season against the Steelers. And Bailey Zappi had 240 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And Ezekiel Elliott had 22 carries for 68 yards and 7 receptions for 72 yards and a touchdown. But the Chiefs should bounce back this week and win. Next, the 10-3 49ers versus the 3-10 Cardinals. The 49ers won 28-16 over the Seahawks, and Brock Purdy had 368 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Christian McCaffrey had 145 yards rushing, and Deebo Samuel had 149 yards and 1 touchdown receiving. And the Cardinals are coming off of their bye week, but the 49ers will win. Next, the 4-9 Commanders versus the 6-7 Rams. The Commanders are coming off their bye week, and the Rams are coming off of a 37-31 loss in overtime to the Ravens. In this game, Matthew Stafford had 294 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Kyren Williams had 25 carries for 114 yards, and Cooper Kupp had 115 yards and a touchdown. and I have the Rams winning. Next, the 10-3 Cowboys versus the 7-6 Bills. The Cowboys beat the Eagles 33-13, and Dak Prescott had 271 yards and 2 touchdowns, and now has 3,500 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions on the season. And the Bills beat the Chiefs 20-17. In this game, James Cook had 58 yards rushing and 5 receptions for 83 yards and a touchdown. And I think the Bills are going to win this week. Next, the 10-3 Ravens versus the 8-5 Jaguars. The Ravens are coming off of a 37-31 win over the Rams in overtime, where Tylan Wallace had a 76-yard punt return touchdown. And the Jaguars lost 31-27 to the Browns, and Trevor Lawrence had 257 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. And Evan Ingram had 11 receptions for 95 yards and 2 touchdowns. But I still have the Jaguars winning. And on Monday Night Football, the 10-3 Eagles versus the 6-7 Seahawks. The Eagles are coming off of a 33-13 loss to the Cowboys. And in that game, A.J. Brown had 9 receptions for 94 yards. And Devontae Smith had 5 receptions for 73 yards. And the Seahawks are coming off of a 28-16 loss to the 49ers and have now lost 4 games in a row. Last week, Drew Lock had 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, and Tyler Lockett had 6 receptions for 89 yards. And I have the Eagles winning. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. Goodbye.